care about current affairs, it's on the OShow.
Welcome to the OShow, Canada's current affairs show with strong opinions. I'm your host, Laura Babcock, and you can all see a favorite guest is back to join us on this very historic day. It is Douglas Conners. He is from the True North Eager Beaver podcast. And no one better to talk to on the day that we get a new prime minister than someone who loves Canadian politics as much as Douglas does. And I just have to say, cheers to our new prime minister, Mark Carney. I want to raise
Indeed.
a toast. It is a magnificent moment in Canada. So much has happened, Douglas.
Oh my.
I was watching it from the sunny climes of the Dominican Republic, had a lot of great conversations with Americans from Mississippi to Pittsburgh to Pennsylvania and all other kinds of places. Love Canada, hate what Trump is doing to Canada, thinks it's stupid, and I would laugh at it, but here's where I want to start.
Okay.
Yesterday in the Oval Office, you had Trump sitting with the Secretary of NATO. And,
Right.
and he said, I'm sorry to have to do this, Canada. You can keep your "O Canada" anthem, but we're going to have to essentially take your country. And the Secretary of NATO didn't say much about it, laughed when he said it about Greenland too. I've seen posts from people in Greenland who are upset about it. But then apparently the Secretary of NATO on another US interview this morning pretty much made it look as though Canada is going to be left to deal with Trump, who is literally not just threatening our economy anymore with force, but threatening our sovereignty. I've been saying this since the get, Douglas.
Yep.
This has never been about tariffs or fentanyl at the border. This has always been about softening up Canada for the kill, for taking our country. And I'm bloody alarmed. Happy we have a new prime minister. Maybe it's a new opportunity here, and this guy knows the economy, Mark Carney. Where are you with everything? What's your level of alarm? What's your level of hope with the Carney coming in? And then we'll get into when the election's going to be and Doug Ford and all the other stuff. Go ahead.
My level of alarm is I'm trying to do the typical Canadian thing where I'm not trying to ignore it, but I'm trying to live my best life despite it because I know how much of this is noise. However, um, it is objectively, by any standard, extremely disconcerting that he keeps on coming back to it. So clearly, there is another plan. We know that Trump, that his whole thing, I mean, if we're talking about total vulture capitalism, that's the way he does businesses, right? When he's doing a hostile corporate takeover, tries to talk down a certain business that he's interested in, or a corporation or an industry, drives supply slower, maybe makes life difficult for the people by suing them or making them spend a whole bunch of money on tons of things. And then, when they're distracted or they don't have all their financial resources, we'll just go in and perform that unfriendly, hostile takeover at an extremely good price. And then, call yourself a genius. Trump doesn't like pushback, which is one of these things that we're hearing a lot. Every time that we have pushback, there seems to be always a phone call from Howard, and I have to say it the right way on this show, Letnick, because we say it different on our show.
Yes.
We invert the N and the L.
I get you.
Yes, on our show. But Mr. Letnick, who is a fast talker, who I listened to a very interesting episode of CBC Frontburner, who achieved his status through tactics very similar than Donald Trump.
So these are assholes that we're dealing with. I don't know what his
Birds of a feather who stick together.
Yeah, they're assholes. And I think your vulture capitalist analogy is a really good one. So we know who we're dealing with. We're dealing with people who want to beat us down, get us at a cheap price. And I don't think that we're going to ever stop Trump's instincts. One thing, and I want to say this to our listeners and viewers before they start to feel all is lost.
Right.
There is something I've been waiting for, which is a way for Trump to walk away from this disastrous tariff
Right.
policy that is crushing the US economy, right? So people are losing their 401ks, which means
Correct.
their retirement investments. The stock market is crashing incredibly, and rich people like money, and all of Trump's people are rich people. So what I've been waiting for is for all the rich guys around him, the only ones he listens to say, you know what?
Yep.
This tariff shit, it's causing me to lose money now, pal. I'm not a fan of it. Let's walk out of it and do the other stuff we want to do, taking Social Security or all these other monstrous deeds that these horrible men are going to do.
Yeah.
And so I think that what I saw today was there's rumors in the White House that the pressure from the billionaire
Yes.
class has gotten so much so
Yes.
that they're going to come up with some super global reset deal that Trump was genius enough to work out with Mexico, Canada, and the EU all at
Yes.
once. And then we get a break from this madness. Your thoughts?
I think that's similar because, as I was mentioning when I was talking about Mr. Lutnick, let's be clear, he's the fall guy
Mm-mm.
if this doesn't go well, right? And he's being set up for that. So let's just be clear. And let's also be clear that whatever Howard Lutnick says has absolutely no weight because we've seen the president of the United States, this guy here, particular, have somebody in his cabinet sit right by him, say something, and then just castrate him or undercut him right there in the room next to him. So Howard Lutnick is just a figurehead. He's a guy that talks fast. He goes on American news, says that Donald Trump is the most genius person everywhere, talks down Canada. But if we're actually reading the newspaper articles, we're seeing that both times that we planned to put counter tariffs, it was Howard Lutnick that called us and was saying, "Hey, you need to tamp this down. You need to calm down the rhetoric. Just calm it down." It's like, what? Oh, sorry. Yeah. Let me remember. What's that kind again? Yeah. Lay back and take it.
Right.
Let me climb all over you and do what I want to you, right? And Trump is presenting this as like, oh, well, if you hit back at us, then we'll hit back at you. No, no, no. Negotiations don't work. I get to punch you in the face
Yeah.
for free just because I'm Trump and I'm America,
Right.
and you don't get to react. But if you react and do the normal human thing and punch me back, well, then I get to kick you in the balls.
Right.
That's not a negotiation. And the one thing about Canadians is that if you basically what you say that is what you're telling me is that before you get your leg up to kick us in the balls, we need to throat punch you
Right.
to make sure that you don't get that leg up. Thank
Right.
you for telling us how to handle you. So that's what we've been doing, right? We had Doug Ford go on and said, "Hey," and Doug Ford's out trumping Trump.
Mm.
I don't want to do this because, but I have to because one guy, your guy's making me do this, and gonna have to raise your energy prices. And then what's that happens? Howard Lutnick gives a call again. You got to stop this. And Doug Ford says, no. And then Doug Ford gets a meeting. How good this, what the value of this meeting is, dubious, because again, it's with Howard Lutnick and his word means nothing,
Right.
right? He has no peg, he has no weight, he has no say, he has no pull. But that meeting was preceded by something very interesting that happened. And if you saw Mark Carney the other day, he was in Steeltown. He was in your neck of the woods.
Was.
I think it was at DeFasco, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
And there was only a 5 or 6 minute back and forth with the press. But Mr. Carney very subtly mentioned in that, but seemed to say that should I become prime minister, I'm ready to talk, but there will be some conditions before I'm going to be ready to talk. He didn't say there will be some conditions, but he said two things
Yeah.
which are conditions. Number one, that we enter the room with a respect for Canada. So I'm guessing that that translates to Mark Carney looking at the people in the United States and saying, all this talk about 51st state is going to stop, right? Because there's going to be no talkie-talkie with me
Mm-hmm.
at all unless that shit stops.
Mm-hmm.
Are we clear?
Mm-hmm.
And the second one is we're going to talk about a comprehensive. So no more of this 30-day to 30-day psychodrama stuff like Melanie Jolie said, in English, but it was translation in French. Hey, c'est pas vrai qu'on va faire ça. It's not true that we're going to do that. So you got Mark Carney before Trump even had a chance to say one word about him. It's already done a domination play.
Love it.
And it seems that his background at the Bank of Canada back at the time was that he was extremely focused, very, very, very prepared when he came to things, was extremely demanding, extremely firm, but extremely fair and extremely caring.
So here's the thing with Carney, because we're all getting to know him, I think, simultaneously. I mean, he did get us from not going into that stupid housing crisis. He didn't buy into those,
Right.
underwater mortgage pack, all that garbage from Wall Street. He avoided it because he knew it was a sham, and he
Right.
helped Canada then, right?
Right.
And he was over in the UK. There's mixed reports on how he did there, depending on how you felt about the whole Brexit mix. But the fact is, he's got a reputation of being very focused, very professional, highly respected. You've got people like Mike Bloomberg, billionaire, ran New York City. He's like, this is the guy, Canada. You've got other people around the world saying, can't wait to have Mark Carney at the G7. And so this guy is good at economic stuff. He's well respected globally, and he's
Yes.
not going to take shit from anyone. And so I just have to say, Douglas, on the one hand, I loved it that he's made his first call is going to be going over to his first trip's going over to the EU.
Yes.
We saw the head of the UK of Britain today say, Canada is going to remain independent as a proud sovereign nation. Looks forward to meeting with Carney. So Carney is basically saying to Trump, I'm going to go and work with the rest of the big boys. When you want to give me a little bit of fucking respect in my country, then
Right.
I'll sit and I'll talk to you. But I'm not
Exactly.
walking into a negotiation on my knees, right? But you've
Exactly.
got some Canadian sycophants out there who are saying, or people who are just afraid or don't know how to do a tough negotiation, who are saying,
Yeah.
"Oh my God, run to the Mad King and make him feel good, and then maybe
No.
he'll let us off the hook."
No.
Mark Carney, who can trust? You cannot, first of all, you cannot negotiate with someone who is mad, and Trump is greedy and focused, but he's crazy. We all
A-
know this.
And who has proven that his word means nothing.
It means nothing. His word means nothing,
So,
like Putin's word means nothing,
right.
right? So Mark Carney's in a position where, Trudeau ran down to Mar-a-Lago, didn't do a damn thing. He's not going to run to Trump. He's going to go to the rest of the allies in the free world, and he's going to try to work with them. So it is a power play out of the gate, as you
Yep.
said. He mentioned the gloves are off, and as much as Lutnick
Yep.
runs back and goes, "Stop being so mean. Trump doesn't like it when you talk back." Fuck that. This is
Yeah.
our country we're talking about.
Exactly. Fuck that guy.
We're not gonna be Canada, the fierce, proud, bold, brave Canada, and say, hey, you know what? Crazy narcissist in the White House who only won by 1% of the fucking vote. You do not get to tell us that our time as a sovereign nation is over because you fucking feel like it. And Adam
Right.
Kinzinger said it so well. He said if Trump was really a big man, he'd be talking tough to Iran. He wouldn't be talking tough to Greenland and Panama and Canada. He
Right.
is weak and he is an asshole and he is tanking his own economy. And the American people are going to rise up and they are going to say, we signed up for a lot of shit, but we didn't sign up for you collapsing our economy and bullying our neighbors. And I
Yeah.
cannot wait for the Americans to get in his ear and make him save face by getting off our necks.
Well, it's what you said, and this is already happening, actually. There are some people in the remember we had this previous conversation where I said there's one rule in Republican
Mm,
stuff like that, particularly high-powered Republican.
mm,
Don't fuck with my money.
That's right.
Do whatever you want to the people. I don't care, but do not fuck with my money.
Right.
And by this back and forth whiplashing, it's terrible. Markets like predictability and stability. If you're going to do the tariffs, but do them. Let us know and we'll adjust. If you're not going to do the tariffs, don't do them. But don't do them one day, not do them one day. So he's already been having these conversations. And what happens is that we are learning that divide and conquer works both ways. It's a two-way street. So his thing of divide and conquer is separate nations from each other. He loves bilateral deals and he hates the CUSMA because it's a trilateral deal and the dispute mechanism has three bodies. He likes one-on-one.
Mhm.
That's why he wanted to first try to separate us as two bilateral deals. That is not going to happen. Mexico's not having it. We're not having it. We both know which side our bread is buttered on this one, and Mexico and Canada have each other's backs on this one, so that's not a problem. But um, he started with the automakers, and we all know that because it's not only integrated. We have the Auto Pact Canada and the United States that's been here for a long time, but now Mexico's in it, right?
Mhm.
And they are fully integrated, and so much so that there's, we think about Michigan and whatnot, but there's a little bit of an auto industry even in Kentucky now as
Mhm.
a result, right? Because it's closer to Mexico. So these things are going back and forth. And a lot of people have done this over the next couple of years, not because we wanted to have jobs in Mexico and we wanted to have jobs. It's just more efficient,
Mhm.
right? And this is how we get the cheapest priced for things. So he got that call.
Mhm.
He said he was going to do that, then got the call, and then the next day said, "Hey, this we're going to start feeling things in 4 or 5 days. You can't do that like this." And so, "Oh well, we'll build our own things." Well, yeah, you could do that, but by the time you replace the 5 to 6 plants that are in Canada that you'll have to put over there, it'll be hundreds of billions of dollars and probably about 10 years of like permitting and construction. And in the meantime, other countries are just going to fill that gap, that void,
It's not
and you
amazing.
won't be able to get it.
Yeah.
So he backed down on that.
Right.
Then it was agriculture,
Right.
right? like this, and they put on their first tariffs, and we had our first bunch of the tariffs, $30 billion. Most of that's on agriculture. Well, simultaneously, China
Hmm.
had put things on agriculture as well. Mexico hasn't announced its counter tariffs yet
Hmm.
because Trump's actually afraid of Scheinbaum, because even though Mexico is more dependent on uh, the United States than we are, so we have the ability to be mouthy. Claudia Scheinbaum, given that she leads a very, very left party, is prepared to do certain things that would make life very uncomfortable
Hmm.
for Trump, which is why the rhetoric towards Mexico is so much nicer than the one to us. But the consequences are the same,
Hmm.
whether we're mouthy or whether we're nice. It's the same tariffs on both the entire time.
And
It
may I
doesn't
say,
change. So,
so
which means we can afford
yeah.
to be mouthy.
Well, and she
To
came
these
out the
guys.
gate swinging. She didn't run down to
Oh no,
Mar-a-Lago and have a dinner like Trudeau did. And
but that was fine. We needed to do that. That
yeah,
that, that first one was like,
sure.
right. That phone call, you have to remember how it came down. They were on the phone call
Hmm.
like this, and um,
Trump,
Trudeau said we should talk about this sometime, and
yeah.
it was Trump that said, "Hey, how about Friday dinner?" So we went. Good faith. We had to do that. The first one.
And I'm
After
not
that,
upset about that. I'm just
no,
saying
no. But a
Sheinbaum
lot
did.
of people looked at it as a cowardice thing because Sheinbaum didn't do it. Like, and,
Right.
and that's fine. Sheinbaum didn't do it, and that's fine. But the very, very first one, the very, very first time, because you have to understand that Trump loves celebrity,
Oh, of
right?
course.
It was that. And that's what we got with Mark Carney. And that's the other piece of leverage is that Donald Trump knows the first meeting on camera between him and
Yeah.
Carney, who is well respected all around the world, is going to be a big deal. And he wants it, and he wants it fast.
Hmm. And Carney's a banker and he respects bankers overall. But
He
let me,
likes process,
yeah, yeah.
right? Time, deliberate process like this. So Trump is not going to get that meeting as fast as he wants.
Yeah.
And he wants that meeting to be really good so he can make a great impression. Well, if Carney's going all around
Hmm.
like this and getting everybody together, EU just announced some tariffs on steel as well, right? Back and forth. So right now, Trump is facing tariffs from steel from Europe, facing agricultural tariffs from China and us, and now steel tariffs as well as from us. Mexico's coming down the line. EU will have more stuff if they're going to do that. And then we got the April 2nd when he's supposed to go all around the world. And if you do anything that I consider a tariff, whether it's a tariff or not, I'm going to do this. And if you dare respond, I'm gonna cripple you again, right? So
Yeah.
not cripple,
So,
I hate that
so
word.
let's
I'm
go.
going to
So,
damage you.
yeah. So
So
I don't want to go too much play by
no,
play.
no,
It's
I don't
Geopolitics
want to go back
about
to back
done.
there. But
Yeah.
so you got all this going on, but he's creating a situation. This is why this is very important,
Yeah.
where Canada, Mexico, the EU, potentially Australia, a whole bunch of other countries are all going to be applying simultaneous tariffs. Now, the United States is 340 million people. Against us, they can crush us. But the EU, us, China, all together, all imposing tariffs at the same time, he's going nowhere. And as you say, when the 401ks start to drop, when
Mhm.
people start losing the jobs, nobody signed on to that. All the pressure is going to come from the inside. And this man cannot tolerate pain. He will fold.
Yeah. So like, a couple points. So Sheinbaum has record crowds in Mexico City celebrating her position against
80%
Trump.
approval rating, 10% up since she was voted
That's right.
in.
And Zelensky's approval rating has gone up even higher than it was. It was in the 40s. It's even higher now in Ukraine because of how Trump treated him. Mark Carney is decimating Poilievre, even though apparently Carney's personal approval has dropped 10% under the onslaught of Carney ads that Poilievre is pushing out there.
Yep.
The reality is the actual polling has Carney in a comfortable lead if there were to be an election tomorrow, which we'll get to
Right.
in a minute. But just
Right.
back to the geopolitical chess match that's happening here, it's not just that Carney is aligning with the other G7 nations and that there's a ton of tariffs coming, and Trump just put 200% on wine and champagne out of Europe, which is like, I mean, there's only so much the American people can freaking handle, and they're not going to be able to handle all of this, and that's
Nope.
the play right now. Everyone dump back on Trump. There's an excellent Reagan. I can't believe I'm saying this out loud. An excellent Reagan clip where Reagan
Uh-huh.
explains how tariffs work. And he says,
Right.
in the short term, it might feel like a win, but very soon you lose your factories, your competitiveness, your markets,
Yep.
and it screws up your entire economy.
Yep.
So that's a Reagan crap coming there. But the other thing that I just want to make the point on is that it's not, we talk about this world order alignment with Trump moving towards Putin.
Right.
Putin wants all of that. The economic world blocks. You had the
Right.
G7, which had all the economic power.
Right.
Now the BRIC nations, right? The
Right.
BRIC has more economic power combined when you put in Brazil and India and China, and I always forget the other one. The R in BRIC.
South Africa, and what's the R in
Is it
Russia?
Russia? Yeah.
Russia. It's Russia.
The BRIC nations actually have the economic global power now, right? And
Mm,
so the US empire, as it was strong, but it is fading with every minute. And
yep.
so we're just looking at a new world, and in a new world, multilateral trade deals looking, east-west as opposed to south and north is going to be the route that Carney's taking, and it's a smarter play. Now,
Right.
is it easy as Canadians?
No.
Think to ourselves, if he just goes down there and plays nice and sucks up and makes Trump feel good, that all this pain will go away? That's a very tempting thing. But if you've ever watched a kid in the schoolyard, right, who stands on their own and tries to make nice to the bully keeps coming back for the lunch money.
Right.
When that kid figures out he needs friends and those friends show up and let the bully know that it's not going to be that dynamic anymore, the bully moves on.
Right.
It's not that complicated. We
Right.
have to work with our allies and we have to show strength. So, do you think right now, given that Carney has he's got still high approval ratings. I mean,
Yep.
Poilievre, no one's a fan of Poilievre. Carney's also got the polling saying right now Canadians want an economist in this role, not
Right.
Pierre Poilievre, who's been trashing Canada for the last few years. Do you think that Carney is going to call that April election and try to get that mandate? Or do you think, Douglas, that he's going to try to fix this immediate wound for the next six until October, which is, his outpost of when he has to call an election?
I'm thinking that he's the type of person who would like to do that,
Mm,
but knows that that is not an option,
okay.
really. Um, it is best to go now, and I'm saying this as someone who was a very big proponent. Should the situation have been that Justin Trudeau had remained prime minister, that we wait until October, because there we actually have an active government and we can see how this kind of plays out before we go into an election and make an informed decision. Now that things have transpired this way, Christopher Freeland did what she did, and now we're in this situation. It probably is better in this situation to go earlier,
Mhm.
because the longer we wait, that gives just more chances for more 30-day psychodramas. So just better, like, who are the people that you are going to deal with for the next 4 years, and let's just have them. And then from this point on, no more of this 30 things. Everything that you say has to be on paper. None of these, like, well, if you can guess the number that I have in my head with regard to fentanyl at the moment today, I might remove the tariff. No, let's put stuff down on paper. Let's say, what are the target things that we have to measure? Let's make them clear. And then let's stop this. So I'm guessing that that's what Canada is going for, because that's about the only thing that they can do, right? Is to try and precipitate the NAFTA, well, now NAFTA 3, pretty much negotiation, have it come earlier, in order to stop all of this stuff and then try to corner him again. With the international peers, I think that's going to happen for many reasons. One, like I mentioned, autos is one, it's a big sector, agriculture is another, and what he's doing with USAID is taking like $2 billion away from farmers right off the bat, right, by cutting foreign aid, because most of the food is actually grown in the United States and then shipped. But of course, I guess he didn't think about that. But with the steel and aluminum is the really big one that's going to get him, because that's the whole military industrial complex.
Mhm.
And right now, Canada is, I'm sure, Portugal just announced that they're not going to buy the F-35, thus
Right.
creating the permission structure for us to do so. South Korea is offering us submarines that can be built in 6 years. And I wonder if South Korea would sure like our steel and our aluminum to help build them.
Well, China's going to take our meat, right? They're going to buy now from
Beef.
Bill in Canada our beef.
Yeah,
As
China's a little weird because they just tariffed us 100% for having supported Biden on putting a tariff on Chinese EVs, but are now also say, hey, yes, we just tariffed your canola, but we're going to buy all your pork.
so let's bring it back because I mean we can play this global strategic game of risk
but
tariffs,
but the military one is the one that's really, really, really important, because particularly steel and aluminum, because the United States buys about 90% of our steel and aluminum, right? If South Korea decides, hey, we're going to make 6 subs for you, and we say, hey, South Korea, would you like to make it with our steel and our aluminum? When the United States finally comes back to its senses, that steel and aluminum is not there anymore for their military thing. And if Canada changes all its procurement, if we ditch the F-35 and we go with the Griffin or the Saab, and we get the subs from South Korea, and we get other things from Germany and other, those are contracts that are permanently gone. And the manufacturing for all of those things are also permanently gone from the United States forever, which makes it harder for the United States to take care of their own military. Because the reason why they can be so spend so much more than we do is because they produce for all of us as well.
And you
And
know
if
what?
that
It's
stops,
an excellent,
that
no,
changes everything.
it's an excellent point, and that's what Reagan was getting to about tariffs. Eventually, your customer finds another store to buy from, right? And then you're screwed. And so I
Yep.
think on the military thing, that makes excellent point. I mean, so geopolitically, nobody wants this fight. Everybody
No,
wants to get back to the
it's
way they
dumb.
were operating. I often think, what would we be talking about as a world if Kamala had won? Probably other things
Oh yeah.
that we used to talk about before that we cared about, like climate change mitigation, all these other things. But
Right.
where we are here is just to bring it back to a domestic reality. This
Right.
is we have a new prime minister. You think he's going to go for an election? I think that's smart
Absolutely.
before there's any more traction from the Poilievre team, in terms of these
Mhm.
ads and trying to lie about Carney and all this other garbage.
And also the financial caps, right? Because you're in an election period. There is a spending cap. Right now, there is not pre-writ. So conservatives can spend however they want on the character assassination attempt. The sooner the writ is drawn, the limits come into place.
Well, I was worried that Elon's interest, of course, in getting Poilievre in place
Mm.
and all of that stuff. Elon right now seems to be allegedly crying, crying and begging for his buddy to do an infomercial to sell his cars. Trump
Uh-huh.
said he's going to make it domestic terrorism to protest at a Tesla dealership. But you know what? This whole stupid scam with these idiots might not only bring down Trump's ability to do some of these terrible things, but also bring down Elon's ability to
Oh
be the
yes.
man on earth, right? So I'm happy to see the billionaires crying, but my point I was going to make is that the sooner that they can go in this Canadian
Yep.
election, Carney, the less amount of time for Elon to reorganize himself. He didn't win the German interference he tried to do.
Right.
I say Canada, go fast, go now, because
Absolutely.
every single thing that happens from this moment on today, Canada, the day if Mark Carney becomes prime minister, is going to be blamed on Mark Carney.
Yeah.
So,
And the
yeah.
conservatives have handed Mark Carney a gift because Pierre's absolutely incredible inability to pivot at all. And he's had 8 weeks.
I know. But
He's
because
had
he's
eight
got
weeks.
nothing else,
That's a,
Pierre
I
Poilievre
know,
has
but it's
nothing
a
else to
gift.
say.
It's a gift. It's a
Right.
gift because we know one on one, even like you mentioned, Mark Carney, some of his personal numbers are starting to go down. Even if Mark Carney's personal negatives were equal to Pierre Poilievre's, one on one on a debate stage, Pierre Poilievre for the last 2 years has said, Justin Trudeau doesn't understand the economy. I understand everything economy. You just need to do this. You just act the tax and everything will be right.
Right.
Right. Just punish the municipalities and the houses will get built. Um, Side by side with Mark Carney, yeah, Mark Carney is going to make him look like a fool on anything economic.
Oh, and
Right?
that's all. So let's get to that because that's all that matters. I mean,
Really, at the end of the day,
there's never been a time in Canada. I remember during the Meech Lake Accord, it was about, national unity. And I remember healthcare being top of the thing and pandemic was top of the thing. There is nothing but Trump. There is nothing but Trump.
right?
And so all of that axe the tax garbage, all that stuff doesn't matter. And it makes me laugh my butt off because Polyev actually tried the Trump trick of projection yesterday.
Yep.
He put out a meme that
Slogans.
said about Carney. He's like, all Carney is slogans. And I'm like, you're literally slogan boy. But people are going to buy into that shit. So the
Yep.
sooner that we do this election, the better. We're in a violent agreement, I feel like, on this.
Carney got him on that one too. By the way, he
Oh,
says Carney only believes in slogans. This is the second time. Like it didn't work for him the first time. He actually said it in one of his press conferences that nobody watched because CBC didn't cut to him, and
Mhm.
then he had to try to put it again in a second conference. Nobody watched because CBC didn't cut to that one, and then he tried to do it again, make
Right.
sure that people heard it. Um, he said Mark Carney only offers slogans. I will put Canada first. And Mark Carney replied, Canada first is a slogan, particularly when you capitalize the C and the F.
Okay,
If
so
you just
on
said
that,
Canada first with a minuscule, with a lowercase f, that's,
so
but
it's funny, and I'm glad Carney's
come
winning,
on.
and I'm glad that he doesn't put up with this stupid shit. But I will say this on the Canada First. I just want to say this to everybody out there. Canada First is not the same as Canada Strong. It's not the same as
No,
Canada Sovereignty. Canada
no.
First is a nationalistic thing, but it's also got roots in white supremacy, right?
KKK.
And the KKK, and it's what MAGA in the US uses. So when we see Poilievre out there doing his Canada First rally and saying all these things that sound good, it is not the same. It is coded language. It is dangerous as
Yes.
fuck. So
Yes.
Canada, do not be fooled by Canada first as a slogan. Canada strong, great. Team
Yep.
Canada, great.
Yep.
Fuck Trump, great. But Canada first is more about lining up with Trump and his horrible policies and his xenophobia and nationalistic, economy crashing theories than it is anything good for this country. So please, please, to your friends and your family and your neighbors, help them understand that when Pierre Poilievre says Canada first, what Pierre Poilievre is saying is, I want to be MAGA like America first. I want to be nationalistic. I want to use a slogan that is steeped in white supremacy. And so please let your friends and family know that not only is Pierre Poilievre terrible on the economy compared to Mark Carney, but he's also terrible in terms of our rights and our social policies, and he is adopting the language of Trump.
Well,
It's the
yes,
language of Trump. Canada
absolutely.
First is the language of Trump.
Yeah.
Don't
And,
use it.
and it's a confession,
Mm.
right? Whenever he's Canada first, because he's literally looking at the camera and says, I have no original thoughts or ideas of my own. I need to plagiarize off the dumbest kid in class's copy.
Okay, but his stupid has worked so far. Until Carney dropped on the scene, Poilievre's stupid redundancy was working, okay?
Well, did it? Like, because I know this. He was leading in the polls. He had all that park vote. But I'm sitting here at home like this, and I think you will appreciate this as a communications person. Um, they keep on saying 10 years of Justin Trudeau. Well, actually, it would actually have been 10 years in October, but let's say 10 years. That's also 10 years of 24/7 nonstop rage machine
Yeah.
like this, trying to take down Trudeau like this, that really went on steroids in the last two.
Yeah.
Millions of dollars, millions of work person hours pumped into that one campaign. And it might end with Carney having a majority and PP's political career being done, like really done. Because I do not know how even the great conservative recycling program, when you blow a 26-point lead completely in the space of 8 weeks, and then let's say Carney wins by 5, so 26. Let's say like this, and if you look at the whole swing, they're like a 42-point swing. This you go down in history, and not for good reasons. And I don't think that you're going to end up being recycled at Bennett Jones or because you are toxic. You've got loser all over you,
He'll
and
hit
you
Kim
can smell
Campbell
that from
type
miles
of
away.
ostracization, right? Kim Campbell was stabbed with the long knives, and they're going to do it to Poilievre if he
And
can't.
it couldn't happen to a nicer guy.
And Kim Campbell has some nice words for Poilievre. I'm being
Mm,
facetious, of course. She totally like slammed him. We should get her on the OShow. Anyway,
I'd love to talk to her.
yeah, wouldn't she be great? I've met her before, so maybe I'll try. But anyway, back to what we're saying here. So we think there's going to be an election. We think it's strategically good timing before
Oh yeah.
Poilievre and the rage lie machine garbage that they're throwing out there on Carney gets traction. And listen, there are
And
things.
before the blind nut finds a squirrel and actually half pints a pivot.
Right, right. And you know what? I don't think he's capable of pivoting because to all of what we've
Yeah.
said, Polyev has had one thing and it was working and it was rage. But
Yep.
now Canadians are not raging at Trudeau, the economic policies, and the carbon tax. We're raging at a singular point of focus of Donald Trump and who can possibly get that fucking guy under control so we can get on with the rest of our lives. And so I think that's where this is going to be a single ballot question. And Carney's got things that you cannot like about him. You got things you can attack, and that's democracy. And
Hmm.
the conservatives can do whatever they're going to do. But I think for Canadians, it's like, yeah, whatever, Poilievre, you've been calling Canada broken. And even since this started,
Oh
Pierre
yeah.
Poilievre, even since this
He
started,
can't stop.
even since Trump came at Canada and we knew it was for real, you still had Poilievre saying shit about our country.
Yep.
You still had him doing it. So you know what I said to him? I said, you got axe attacks, you got all these 3-word slogans. Here's one for you, grow a pair.
We're
And I was
weak
like,
and we're stupid and like
well, it's like, you
it's
know
he's
what?
literally Canada's abusive
Oh, he
boyfriend.
said
He
he
never
said
misses
that
an opportunity.
he said that we were left weak or something. And I'm
Yeah.
like, you know what? Even if you feel like we could be in a better economic position after Trudeau's time, and I'm happy to have that argument. And even if you want to say that Trudeau didn't have a good plan for his immigration targets and he didn't do well on the homeless file, even from where he could in a national strategy, I can go at Trudeau's legacy all goddamn
Absolutely.
day. But
There's
don't
plenty
you
to criticize.
dare, when we're in a fight, don't you dare tell the person who's trying to take us and hurt us that we're weak. I hate that shit.
That's
And
dumb.
Polyev get, ugh, sorry.
It's dumb.
It is
It shows an incredible inability to read the room. Pierre Poilievre actually thought that Canadians hated Justin Trudeau so much that we also hated ourselves.
right. Wrong,
Okay, wrong.
Polyev.
I'm sorry. Like this, and this is classic abuser talk,
Right.
right? Like, yes, he takes it in a political context, but put it in a relationship context. Context. You're weak.
Mm-hmm.
You're ugly. Who
Mm-hmm.
would want you? You're worthless.
Yes.
You only got me.
I know. I'm
Stay
your,
with me.
I'm the
I
only
got you.
one
Nobody else would want you anyway.
who wants you. I know. You're right. So
It's literally
it's brilliant.
he's Canada's abusive boyfriend, and he never misses an opportunity to tell us how weak and worthless we are. Literally, you could put him in a Twisted Sister video from 1980s. He could be that dad. You're worthless and weak. What do you want to do with your life? I don't want to vote for you.
I want my elbows up. I want my elbows up.
I
Okay, but
know.
let me just say this just from a since we went into this weird psychological landscape, but it's real and we should talk about it because who else is going to? You've got Polyev. I think that's a great analogy. Canada's, abusive boyfriend telling us how much we suck all the time, so that we'll believe that only he can help us.
Yes.
But then you've got even worse. You got the guy in the White House who is literally saying, "Oh, my little cherished one, don't make me take you, but I have to," which is right up there with sexual assault language, right? So here's my thing on that. I cannot imagine a world where I have to open up my phone and hear that shit from Trump and that shit from Polyev simultaneously.
Bingo.
Can't do it. Not
And
happening.
Canadians have no appetite for it either.
Can't
Just
do it.
none.
Can't do Trump and Polyev both in power. Cannot happen. Let's get a decent human being who doesn't try to abuse our nation in any way, just wants to help us. Mark Carney, let's just get this guy his mandate so he can make us economically stronger. How
Yep.
he's going to stop Trump, we'll wait to see, but we know he can do good things with our economy. So just before I let you off the pod
I
here,
think Carney, what he can do is a coordinating function worldwide, I
mm,
guess, and buy us a lot of time.
mm,
So like this to be able to like mitigate the impacts and buy us some time for the things to bite over there. And hopefully if we can be nimble enough, I
mhm,
guess, and we can have a little good luck in them making a couple of additional errors, let's say with other trading blocks that uh, give them diversions that they need to handle.
mhm.
Um, when Mark Carney a few weeks ago looked at the camera and said, and we'll leapfrog them,
Hmm.
I can see that actually.
What I like is that Mark Carney is using these sort of not quite meta, but these metaphors, right? Where he's talking about, we know how to take when the gloves are off Canada, we know what that fight looks like, right? And we can leapfrog them with these other relationships and these other things. He, to me, is looking at this chessboard from the position of somebody who knows how to play it at that
Oh
global
yeah,
level. And we've got Trump, who is thinking he knows how to play that chessboard, but is
right.
using the same rudimentary moves over and over again
Yep.
and doesn't even know the other possible moves that Carney knows, right? And so, the world is looking for a new leader of the free world, and people are wondering, is it Zelensky, the war hero, or is it going to be Macron? Who saw the fascist threat in France and took that
Right.
risk and stopped it? Is it going to be Starner or is it going to be Carney? I hadn't thought about that before, but from a coordinating perspective, maybe
He
that would
knows all the
be his role.
players.
What's that?
He knows all the players.
He does, and they all respect him. So maybe less of leader of the free world, but more coordinator of the economic systems that are going to emerge as Trump implodes with the American regime. I mean, really, the American empire is imploding in front of our eyes. We can all see that. They've not only lost global respect, but they're losing their global economic power, and they're certainly going to see other nations and other groups like Europe figure out how to make them lose their military dominance as well.
Yeah. And when you mentioned the Secretary General of NATO, I wouldn't be too worried of him not having said anything because Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister of the UK, also had an opportunity once and said nothing, and people were wondering. I think the world leaders have just simply decided that if they're asked anything about that or whatnot, if that comes up when Trump is in the room, they're just not going to say anything because it creates an opportunity for him to go off and then make the whole thing about him, make a spectacle. But Mr. Starmer afterwards has had no problem saying it, and I'm sure the Secretary General of NATO will have no problem saying it
I
afterwards
hope.
and all that kind of stuff. But I think they've just realized that there's just no point, and mentioning it will just give an opportunity to do them to them what he did to Zelensky. And it's like the thing with Zelensky taught everybody, it's like just if they're asked, just don't say anything because nothing good can come of it. Just
And you
move
know what?
on.
I'm hoping that that's what we're seeing. I'm literally, I don't know if the expression is shadow boxing or whatever, but I
Yeah.
hope what we're seeing is that they are pretending to be all like affable with Trump because, you know,
Yeah.
raising up those NATO funding numbers and all the rest. But really behind the scenes, they're playing him at a much more elevated level. And I will say this, there was a meeting, was there not, of all of the heads of the
Oh
army
yes. Oh yes.
without America at the table in
Yes.
this week.
30
So
something nations. And I think that was organized by France and the UK. So, I mean,
I
it's happening. The South Korea deal for the subs, I guess we're finding out in the press yesterday, but they were actually in town on March 5th and March 6th doing this. So, you know, it's happening despite the fact what's going on there. Like when you look at the
So
dates
let's
and you
end
look at
this
the
with
time, it's happening.
advice. Let's end this to with and we could go on to the Ford thing, whether he's helping or hurting or
There's one thing I wanted to mention though, because you mentioned something about Carney that made me think of
yeah,
something. I guess we saw proof of Carney being able to coordinate and plan.
yeah.
Because Pierre Poilievre's big thing of the last few weeks was talking down Carney, right? He's not going to disclose his financial assets and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
On February 26th, after the English debate in the scrum, Mark Carney said, well, I've done, sat for the security clearance and did the interview and all that kind of stuff. And then they asked him about the financial stuff. Well, it's like,
Wait,
well, we went,
hold on. Are you saying that Mark Carney is willing to get high-level security clearance that he's
he
asked
has
to
it.
process? So
He has it.
to me
He's
that
obtained it. He's already receiving briefings.
you're telling me that Mark Carney has top-level security clearance that Pierre Poilievre will not get because
Yes,
he's too afraid to get or he knows
yes,
he cannot get? Is that what
yes.
you're telling me right here,
Mark
right
Carney
now?
had Five Eyes level security clearance when he was the governor of the Bank of England. So when he had to redo his security clearance, they didn't have to do it all from the beginning. They just had to look from the time he was after the Bank of Canada until now.
So what are
So
you
he filed
hiding,
all his
Pierre
paperwork.
Poilievre? Why
Yeah,
can't you get it, Pierre Poilievre?
but
What's your excuse now that Carney has it, Pierre Poilievre?
this is
You
where
don't
I'm
have a
coming.
fucking excuse.
This is where I'm going. So he filed all of that, and then I think on March 11th we found out on CTV that Carney was already receiving security briefings, and he wasn't receiving them because he was already prime minister because he hadn't been sworn in yet. That means he qualified. He went through his all clearance and he got it. At the same time, though, when they were asking about his disclosure, he goes, "Well, one thing at a time. I'm doing this, and then I got to do the other thing. But trust me, at the first available opportunity, I will do it." Well, he was declared the winner on Sunday, and on Monday morning, first thing we found out in the news that he had already not only filed everything with the ethics commissioner, but had divested himself of everything except for the home in which he lives into a blind trust. So all his controlled assets are in a blind trust. He did it right away. 6 or 4 weeks or how many months before he needed 4 months before he needed to. Well, I am pretty sure that Pierre Poilievre has some stocks and bonds and Bitcoin investments that are controlled assets that he has not divested to a blind trust, even though he was proposing new legislation to come out like this. So all of a sudden, in one swift move like this, while Pierre Poilievre was making this big case about disclosure and honesty, Mark Carney has his top secret level security clearance and has divested everything already. Your move, Pierre. When will you divest? And this is the only question media should be asking of Pierre Poilievre until he answers it. When will you divest all your stuff? And when will you sit your security clearance? When will you meet what Mark Carney has already done? And there should be no other questions to him, and nothing else should be heard from him until he answers that one and says that he's going to do it.
You mean they shouldn't be saying what I heard them saying on the panel while we were watching the Carney swearing in of his cabinet, where they're like, Mark Carney didn't take a selfie the other day with a fan. Is that going to hurt him across Canada? And on the desk, Rosie Barton had to read that she was getting a tweet from a viewer who said, Are you seriously talking about that? We're
Right.
under threat. So I'm not counting on the Canadian media asking Poilievre when he's going to divest. And there is an expression that John Hellman came up with about Trump. Everything he says is either projection or confession.
Yep.
I think perhaps some of that might be applying to Poilievre as well. But here's the deal, Canada. Right now, in this moment, we are under attack from the United States,
Absolutely.
not just economically, but our sovereignty. Trump
Yes.
literally said, I'm sorry I have to do this to you, Canada. It's never been at a higher level of threat than it
Is
is
not
right
so.
now. And we have Mark Carney, new prime minister, chance for a reset. And we would be fools as a nation to let petty squabbles or past issues keep us from aligning behind our new leader so that we can get the power that we need to deal with this bully. And let's do an election fast. Let's give Carney whatever he needs to get the job done. But I'm not going to listen to Canadians try to quibble with me on the small stuff when all of that goes out the fucking window if we lose our sovereignty. I'm
It
not
will.
going to listen to somebody say, oh, but what about the gun laws? Or what about this? Or what about that? You know what? None of that matters.
It's big
None
picture
of that
time.
matters if we lose our sovereignty as a nation. You
Right.
think we're going to have rights in the US? You think we're going to be a 51st state and it's
No.
going to have equal rights? We'll be
No.
lucky if we have what Puerto Rico has.
Right.
Trump will take us and he'll fuck us, and we won't have anything we have now. We won't get paid for it. We won't get rights back in women. I know we already don't like Poilievre, obviously creepy, but you think we're going to have better rights as women under a Trump regime? Not a chance. So come on, Canada, smarten the fuck up. Elbows up. We need to get behind our prime minister and we need to fight Trump as a solid, unified nation. Not Canada first, some KKK MAGA shit, as a solid, unified, strong Canada.
Canada altogether.
Canada all together.
One Canada.
One Canada. Team Canada, anything but that Canada first MAGA shit. We need to fight him and let Carney get elected. Great. I'm all for democracy. And we've been democratic so far. Let's keep on going with our free and fair elections. But make no mistake, anyone who's a quisling, who is going to try to make it easier for us to be taken over, who's going to be sycophantic to this regime, who's going to say, as O'Leary said, that we're just 41 million people sitting on a pile of resources, any of that shit, shut the fuck up. We're going to fight for our world here, for our children, for our future, for our environment, for our survival. I mean, come on, right?
Preach. Keep going. Preach.
All
I'm
right.
here. I'm
Violent
hearing the organ
agreement.
in the back. Swelling
Do
up.
I seem like I just came off of a relaxing Caribbean vacation? No, because my country's under attack. Ah,
Ah.
all right. You
Listen,
are
we
as
have
all.
to we
Yes,
have
sir.
to breathe. We have to breathe. We have to remain clear-headed through it, right?
Yes.
But as you mentioned, it is big picture time.
How
Ignore the
clear-headed we talking about?
noise.
We're talking about we can't have any weed or any. No, no, I'm just kidding.
But no. Just ignore the noise, right? There is one subject.
Right.
Who is the best to be able to corner this guy, neutralize him, whatever, and buy us enough time so that whatever he is doing to himself
Mm-hmm.
and to the Americans has time to take hold and people have time to get mad. That's already started, right? You see these town hall meetings and the Republicans are not having them anymore
Mm-hmm.
because people are noticing, but it's still new and there's still a lot of things that go on that people won't notice until it happens to them. And that might be a while off yet,
Mm.
but it will happen because there's absolutely no way with the pieces, the way that he has laid them out and the strategies that he is pursuing and the number of people, the number of nations that he's attacking simultaneously. You can't wage a war on 7 different fronts at once.
Well, you know what'll happen is if Social Security
It's not
checks don't
smart.
come through for the first time in 85 years,
Yeah.
you're going to have 20, 30 million Americans who are going to not be able to eat or pay their rent. So I think that let's hope on a hopeful note, and this on a hopeful note, let's hope that the rumors that this whole trade strategy, this whole tariff strategy of Trump's is an abject failure, and they'll figure out a way for him to walk out of it and save face. Let's hope that Canadians are not distracted by the MAGA Canada First garbage from Poilievre and they get behind an economist in this time of great economic tumult.
Right.
Let's hope we can build a strong Canada and take this terrible moment, this pressure test of our national unity and what it means to value ourselves and reinvest in Canada, in our businesses, in our tourism, in each other. And let's go forward from this monumental historic day where we as Canadians have a new prime minister and an opportunity for a new strategy. Let's do everything we can together to support it because I'm telling you, a house divided is conquered easily, and we cannot be a divided house, Canada. We have to be together. You don't have to love Carney, you don't have to love the Liberal brand, but you have to love our country enough to put petty things from the past behind and stand up strongly for our nation.
Yep. I don't, you kind of disappeared from my screen, so I don't know if you can still see me.
I can.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just remember, kits and cubs, there's this beautiful video going around. I think his name is Todd Maffin, where he talks about beavers and what beavers can do. And Canadians, connect with your inner beaver because apparently beavers are petty as fuck. And we're really, really, really persistent little shits. So, hey, that's what we're born into. Let's connect with our inner Canadian. If you're Canadian, show me your beaver. Let's go.
On that note, I ain't showing anyone my beaver. On that note, Douglas, you're fabulous and funny, and I take your point. Deep breaths, we will get through this, but let's get through it better, stronger on the other side.
Absolutely.
Now,
That's what we have to do.
every crisis is an opportunity once you get past the issue identification and the fear and you get into the problem solving and solution-based thinking. And I think Mark Carney is the guy who is naturally inclined towards solution-based thinking. And I'm glad that we have him as Prime Minister right now. Thank you, Trudeau, for all you've done for our country.
Yes.
It's a new start. And thank you, Douglas O'Connor from the True North Eager Beaver, emphasis on Beaver, to be our first guest in this new era of Canada. So wonderful to have you on the OShow. And everybody, we can do this. Let's
Yes,
go.
we can.
Elbows up. Elbows up.
Elbows up.
Beavers out. Elbows up. Beavers in.
Beavers out, elbows out. I love it.
Beavers in, elbows up. I don't know, whatever.
That should go on a t-shirt.
Enjoy
I
and
like
cheers. Sorry, go ahead. We're not
I
gonna
said that
stop
should go on a t-shirt.
Elbows up, beavers out.
Yep.
Oh my God. Whatever it takes. At this point, you know what? Everyone just love your neighbors, and we're going to get through this. And thank you to all the American viewers of the OShow and around
Yes.
the world. And listeners, subscribe, but we appreciate your solidarity and your messages of support.
Yes.
And do whatever you can to get him to change strategy so that we can get back to being good neighbors and good trading partners. Okay.
Yeah.
Bye, Doug. Yeah, that's all we want.
That's all we want.
Someone said the other day that you're making Canadians hate us, and I said Canadians aren't never hate Americans. We are going to hate your mad king and hope that you bring him down sooner than later. But we're never going to hate our American families and cousins, friends, and cities. We love you guys.
Yeah, once this moment's over, we'll be there waiting with arms open. Don't worry about
Of course we were. Like we were in Gander, like we've always been. Like we have always been when you've needed us and we've needed you, and that's how good neighbors are. We will get past this.
Oh, yeah.
Awesome.
It's
Okay.
just a moment.
It is, yeah, when you're stuck in a moment, as Bono said, we are stuck in a moment and we feel like we can't get out of it, but we can. There's my little bit of you too. Well, it is St. Patrick's Day. What?
Yes.
My favorite day of the year.
Let's have a toast.
Let's have a toast. I'll be having plenty.
I'll be having one because I'm a lightweight.
I'll be having lots because I'm part Irish, but also I make my kids watch me make Irish traditional stew and sing and cry and listen to Irish music, and that's happening. So, life goes on, and a little bit of Bono to take us out of this show. Thanks. Thanks, Douglas. You're the best.
Thanks for the invite.
When you care about current affairs, it's on the OShow. And when you want to get clear what's going on here, it's on the OShow. If you like to stay in the know, tune yourself into the OShow. It's the OShow. Laura Babcock's the OShow. With a lot of great guests, she puts them to the test on the OShow. There's no doubt they'll be calling them out on the OShow. stand for something or fall for it all. Ontario, hear the call of the OShow. It's a podcast, the OShow. Laura Babcock's the OShow. Stay informed with the OShow, OShow.
Your merch band.